thank you, number one, for having me and actually weathering the storm for real. Didn't think this was going to go down. I thought it was canceled at one point. I'm glad that you were open. I told Ashley, I was like, if you guys are open, I'm open. And so I'm here right now. We got, what's your name again?
Derek.
Derek. We got Derek as a model tonight. I'm going to do a 3-step bald fade on Derek's hair. And I'm going to use a number 1 guard. And everything above that, I'm going to work with the shears. Somebody that has really dark hair, you know, it's harder to blend because of that light and dark contrast. If you suck at fading hair, work on people that have blonder hair. You know, it's easier to blend. It actually blends itself, right? Sometimes I struggle with people that have gray hair. We're going to talk about the difference between a clipper and a shear and like why you would use which over the other. You know, that's why I like to do both. And then the top length, you know, overhand cutting, I'm going to use a couple different shears that I have. I think everybody needs at least 4 shears to have a complete set to do any type of hair. You guys all have longer shears? You got 7.5 or 7 or 7.5?
I got an 8.5.
So 8.5, that's a monster, right?
Yeah,
that
I love
thing's,
my monster.
yeah. And again, people are scared with longer shears because, you know, they're like, oh, I'm going to cut my second knuckle elbow off with the shear, right? Or I'm going to cut my wrist, right? You're not going to use that in-hand or overhand. You're going to do it over the comb. You guys get anybody with really long hair? Do you do ladies with longer hair too or no?
Yeah.
So you do both. Setting in that perimeter, right? Open and close. How many times you got to open and close the shear? With a longer shear, it's less opening and closing, less passes. You're going to cover more ground. You're going to cut a cleaner line. Wet shears and dry shears, right? This is a wet shear. All the talons, some of you already have the talon. This is a 7.5. This was the first shear that I got. I like to use it for beards, to detail the beard. I like to do it for shear over comb, and I like to use it for 1 lengths. But if I'm going to work overhand, when we get into the top length, I'll go with a smaller shear, and I will go overhand, and I do cut to the second knuckle. In hand, if you have to, but for the most part, I'm not using any in-hand techniques unless it's like a longer style. The guy who wants to look like Matthew McConaughey, he's got like this long flow. That's one of the most difficult cuts to do, right? How do you keep it from looking like super square? How do you keep someone's fringe looking more texturized or piecey versus like Dumb and Dumber, right? So working with the smaller shear, this is wet and dry, so I can cut through wet hair like butter with this shear. I'll look at your shears and figure out what you already have and what you need to add. And again, the only time I would recommend buying the shears is in a class like this. For hosting, you guys save more money. I was an educator for Paul Mitchell, and so Hanzo came to my school at the time when I was teaching for Paul Mitchell, and they did a class, and I ended up getting this shear. This was the first shear that I got. And the reason why the shear isn't falling out of my hand right now is because of my pinky. You know, you got to have balance. You know, how do you hold the shear? I mean, some people put their thumb all the way through. It's like a handcuff for your thumb. You can't really open and close your shears when your thumb's all the way through like that. So I like to rest mine just on the outside. And I take this blade and I push it away from me. And then my ring finger, my pinky, and my middle finger sits right on this sweet little camel hump here. And I pull that blade towards me, okay? So that way when I hold the shear, it's not all the way out like this. I cock it back so it's a little easier for my thumb. And the scissor loops are offset. So I don't have to bring my thumb as far back like traditional shears that are, you know, butterfly set. But then I can open and close and keep that still blade still. And that open blade, that moving blade, collapses right on top of it. Sometimes you move both blades and it's like nibbling and sawing the hair. But if you know how to hold your tool and you practice, I used to sit in front of the TV and just practice controlling that still blade, keeping it still. You'll get better at it. I always say there's 3 steps to any class or any technique. The first is the knowledge, the lesson, whatever that is. The second is actually getting your hands dirty and cutting someone's hair and trying it. And then last but not least, repetition. Over and over and over until you own it. Otherwise, you don't own it, right? So this was the first shear that I got. I'm going to pass it around. Derek, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's give it up for Derek. All right. So I started cutting at 14. Anybody start real young, like 13, 14, 15? Yeah, my Aunt Carol, she bought a set of clippers for my cousin Anthony. and I stole them. And I used those clippers to cut him and his two brothers and pay him off. He wasn't going to use it. I was the artist, right? And so I was always fascinated. With the transformation. My grandfather used to take me to the barber shop when I was a kid, and I would sit there on a bench just like this, and I would wait my turn. And it was never like, I was a kid, so I didn't have like the best guy. I got who was ever available, right? And my grandfather had his guy that he went to, and if his guy could take me, he took me. But if not, I would go to this other guy, and I could see the difference in quality right away. And, appointment-based, you're in and out. You come in, you sit down on your time. Walk-in, you're sitting there waiting your turn, right? So I would see people coming in looking terrible, and I would see them transform while I was waiting to get my haircut. And so I started cutting my friends and family. And when I was 17, I left to the Navy. And in the military, they teach you how to pay attention to detail. But there's zero detail in the haircut, right? One side's higher than the other, right? No hair, no blend. It was maintenance. I hated how the military barbers cut hair, so I started cutting the guys on my ship. I used my GI Bill to pay for Paul Mitchell when I got out. That's where I learned customer service. I didn't learn that in the barber world. I actually cut hair with no license for over a decade. Anytime the person would walk into the barber shop and I thought they looked kind of like state board, I would sit down and I'd wait for them to leave, then I'd go back to work. One day they actually did come in. They fined 3 of the barbers in my shop in North Jersey. $250 fine, first offense. Second offense, $1,000 fine and up to 30 days in jail. So you got to get a license. So I went to school. 200 girls in my school. Maybe 2 or 3 other guys. I thought I cracked the Da Vinci Code by going to, beauty school. All my friends was like, "Oh, that's gay. What are you doing?" I was like, "Okay, do the math. What do you think?" And I had a good time at school, but I really learned about how to gain a clientele and retain a clientele, right? How to actually go through a consultation, how to use product knowledge to style and finish somebody, make them look good every day, not just the day they come to see you, right? Making sure that you educate your guests on what they need. Everybody that cuts hair should be at least attempting to school the person in the chair in what they need, right? So Derek, he got picked up in my Uber. This is where he lives right now. I got to figure out where he wants to go, right? So we have 3 types of hair: fine, medium, and coarse, right? What would you say Derek has? I'd say fine to medium, yeah, right? You ever seen somebody's hair that grows straight out? Looks like a makeup brush. They have straight, coarse hair, right? To me, that's the most difficult type of hair to work on because it doesn't want to lay down, doesn't want to hug the head shape. It wants to fight, wants to stick up, right? Then you have 4 formations of hair. You have straight, wavy, curly, and extra curly. What would you say Derek has? I'd say he has straight. Yeah, straight to wavy. It's not super straight where it pokes straight out. So it does have a little bit of a wave to it, but definitely not curly or extra curly, right? So now you know fine, medium, coarse, you know the 4 formations. Now you have 12 different scenarios, right? You have to know this before you start. Also, when you place in a baseline, we're going to go with no guard on the 0 setting. If I drop the lever down, it's on a half setting. When the teeth are flush like that, it's on 0. It's the closest this machine can cut. I'm going to put in a bald baseline, okay? You have a couple different reference points you can use. The corner of the eye, the eyebrow, the recession, okay? But I'm not going to go in straight horizontal, all right? Because if I go straight horizontal, it's more aggressive. Once you start to curve it, it's a little bit more conservative, a little more classic, a little softer. Plus, think about this. When you put in a curved baseline, right, when you start that fade and you curve it down, okay, you're mirroring and copying with that fade that expanded shape of the head. So it sits right up against it, looks a lot nicer. You could go more aggressive with it and take it really high up. You remember the first time you grabbed your clippers and turned them on for the first time and we got the nerve to use them on somebody? You remember that? You wanted to write with them like a pencil? Do you? You remember that? The first time? You got the clippers, you're like, all right, I'm going to get in there And then you turn the machine on, you're like, all right, I'm gonna do this. And you were like, nothing can stop me, I'm all the way up. And you cut way up into the top length, right? I'm gonna put a ball baseline, but we're not gonna go all the way up. We're gonna keep it low. Sometimes babies didn't have enough tummy time when they were kids, when they were, newborns. Their mom squeezed them out, they left them on their back. This bone is very flat, they didn't have enough tummy time, right? So if you go in with the clipper and you go really high up, you're gonna expose that, okay? Also, the clipper works on the interior. You're going right up against the scalp. It's gonna copy and mirror the skull. With the shears, you're working on the exterior. With the shears, where'd my shears go? Thank you. With the shears, you're working on the exterior. So you can tailor and sculpt and create the illusion that the head is perfect. Does that make sense? Because you're not copying and relying on the skull anymore. You're working on the outside. All right? So we're going to put in a bald baseline. We're going to put in the number 1 baseline. We're going to blend that out with the half. And everything above that, we're going to work with the shears. Sound good? Yeah. Then on the top length, we could have a little bit of fun with maybe some slide cutting. Open it up, create some separation, right? Maybe the hair is too thick or too much density where it sits right next to each other. You got to open it up so it can have a little bit more natural lift, movement, that kind of thing. Going with the product, you can really get it to stand up a little bit easier. Most guys are not going to blow dry their hair, so if you can make their life easier with maybe creating some texture. I know that some of you needed texturizers. Who said they needed texturizers?
Andrew.
Andrew, right? So I have 2 that I like, and they're for different reasons. Softening, right? Blending. I like to go with my 14. I'm going to pass this around the other way now because I want you to look at each tooth. There's an extra little lip, and it's curved. So what that does is it seals the cuticle down as it cuts. Doesn't create, split ends. That's my favorite for just allowing that coarser hair that sticks out to lay down. I also like to create some separation with that. Then the VT1, that's the 14T. I can write these down. The VT1 is a little bit different in design. It's got a wider gap in between, but that actually takes out less hair. Hair actually sits in those gaps. But it also has a wider tooth, so it can be more aggressive as well. And it's got that curve on each tooth. I'll pass these around. VT1 stands for visible texture. That's what that VT stands for. I wouldn't necessarily use that on his hair. You ever have somebody that's got like a ponytail like this thick around? That's who I would use it on. You ever seen a bad weave? You guys do extensions at all? You know what a bad weave looks like? It's like this. Very stiff.
Yeah.
There's no movement, right? They never opened it up. With the VT1, you can open it up. You can't cut weave and extensions like regular hair. You have to slide cut it and dry cut it, right? That opens up, creates more separation, creates more movement, doesn't look like a stiff sheet of paper. Same thing with that man bun or somebody that has like a big, thick, amount of hair, thicker hair. I love going in there and opening it up. Some guys have no scalp. It's just hair, right? So got to create some separation. That VT1 is perfect for that. Andrew, take a look at both of those. That's what you need as far as like a 4-shear set, right? You need that long shear, you need that shorter shear like a 6-inch, and then you need 2 different texturizers. One for softening and one for creating more visible texture. Now, I have 2 other shears that are more specialty. The Kamikaze has a curved blade. I slide cut. I'll do a little slide cutting on Derek's hair. Sorry. With this one. And it's got that curved blade. I know Trish was looking at it and she was like, what's up with that? It's because it has the curved blade. It allows the hair to slide through it. This is not meant to cut clean lines. You don't grab hair and cut sections of hair with this. This is meant to slide and peel. Okay? I'll pass this one around. Definitely if you have a lot of longer hair and you're doing a more layering and slide cutting, that's your friend. Extensions, same thing. Then they came out with the HHP. This is the best shear that Hanzo makes. The reason why the shear is the best is because it's forged in a higher grade of high carbon steel, lasts longer, holds its edge longer, and the design itself is kind of funky. If you look at it, It goes from skinny to fat to skinny again. Most scissors go fat to skinny, right? Mm-hmm. This one goes skinny, fat, then skinny again. And the reason why is all the weight is in the middle, so it locks the hair in place. Okay? It's not going to push hair. I can take the thickest of a ponytail and go right through it like butter with this. This is a strong, strong shear. All right, you guys ready? Let's cut some hair. When you guys learned how to cut women's hair, right? Some of you went to beauty school. They teach you to put in the basic shape. Then you blow dry, then you go back in and refine it, right? It's the same thing with this. A tattoo artist does a tattoo outline, then they go back in and shade, right? They don't just start shading in one spot in the giant piece. They do the whole outline, then they go back in and they break it down. That's what we're gonna do right now. So I'm gonna take no guard, zero setting. I'm gonna use the corner of the tool. We're gonna come up over the ear, and I'm gonna put a bald baseline. We're not fading anything yet. This is just giving us a roadmap of diagramming on Derek's head. So you can see how high up we're working, okay? Now, my goal is not to make this haircut perfect. My goal is to get you to see how to use different tools and why. I'm not here to teach you how to cut hair. I'm here to expand the way you look at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're dropping down into a diagonal back. You see that? Now I'm keeping it very low. Reason being is I want to stretch out that light to dark contrast. If you go up too high too fast, you're not going to have anything to stretch out.
There's going to be no on there again?
There's going to be high contrast. Say again?
What number?
There's no guard on here.
No guard.
No guard, zero setting, step one. Ball baseline. That's the first thing we're going to do right around. We're dropping down into the nape, and we're creating a nice little smile line, okay? First step is done, yeah? You can see that first baseline. You got no hair and hair, yeah? All right. Second step, we're going to put the one guard on. And this is just a simple way to break down how high up you're working, right? We're mapping it out. And we're going to go slightly higher, create a secondary baseline, a little bit higher than where we left off, about a little less than a comb's width. Right? And this is the second thing we're going to do. We're stretching out that light to dark. There's 0, 1, and everything above it. You're going to see 3 levels of hair. So once we have that secondary baseline, and you can see the progression start, but I haven't went up above into the crown or anything.
You got your inch, baby.
Still dropping low.
Yeah, you got your inch.
Right?
No.
All right. Doesn't have to be perfect.
No.
But you can see how high up we're working, yeah? All right.
I already told Ashley.
And again, what happens when people have dips and dents and dives in their head, right? Peaks and valleys. You start to see little shadows and things, right? If you go longer and you work with the shears, you don't have to worry about that because now you're working on the outside. But if you're going in on the interior with the clipper, you do have to go in there and really stretch the skin out.
Did he have enough tummy time?
He did. He has a good shaped head, actually. You guys see that, right? 0, 1, and everything above it, yeah? 3 levels. Now we're going to fade. Adequate light, right? When you're doing a bob or longer hair, they tell you not to manipulate the head over direction, elevation, gets thrown off. But with barbering, you need to see and have that adequate light so you can go back in and see every little detail, right? So you can turn the head because you're working right up against the scalp. No guard. We're dropping it down to the half setting, open, right? But I'm not going to use the full blade. I'm only going in with that corner, right? The first few teeth. And I'm going to diffuse that line that we put in. I don't want to use the full blade because what happens? I can
make a hole.
Or I can create a higher line, right? I can start pushing it up even higher.
Down and up.
Yeah. So here we go. Just using that corner. It's like point cutting with your clipper. You're just diffusing that first baseline that we put in with the 0. Now with the half. Okay? Then once we get a little bit higher in this transition, we'll go in with our shears, our longer shear. Stretch that skin. Some people have flexible scalps. You want to really concentrate where that blade is hitting. And if you want to zoom in and just remove that line, Take your thumb and stretch the scalp. Have a little tension so it's not just wiggling all over the place. These soft nail bristle brush, if the hair gets stuck to the scalp, even the finest teeth on a comb might not get it, but these do. I saw some of you have them on your station and you sell them. It's only like $1.
You can't live without a brush.
Gotta have that little brush for
Yep.
those guys that are sweating. So I'm just using that corner. We're stretching out that fade from light to dark. They say hair cutting is a distribution of weight. Where are you removing the weight? Where are you placing the weight? Fading is stretching out light to dark contrast. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna use our shears. Here we go.
Okay.
So, with the shears, I'm gonna start on the right side because I'm right-handed.
Pump it, baby. Pump it.
There we
Pump
go.
it. There you go.
Alright. What happens when you wet hair?
What do you want, a board meeting?
It makes the hair stretch.
Stretches out, expands, right?
Exactly.
What happens when it dries?
It
Great.
shrinks.
It shrinks. I learned that in 3rd grade. My mom didn't want to take me for a haircut. And so I wet down my bangs. I had this cool Justin Bieber, kind of longer, young Bieber flow. And my hair was in my eyes, and my mom didn't want to take me to get a haircut, so I wet it down. And I went straight across, right across the front forehead. Boom! I was like this. It's like this first, right? And I
Yeah.
cut it right to about here,
Yeah.
wet, and then it dried and went like that.
Pull it
Yeah.
back down.
So now I had this hard European fringe, right? And I had longer shoulder length hair still because I couldn't reach or see that. The mullet was, you know, flapping in the wind. And I was missing my 2 front teeth. I was in 3rd grade, most 3rd
I was gonna
graders.
say 7.
Yeah, something like that. And it was picture day.
Oh.
I wore a button-up shirt, half tucked into my sweatpants, and I had a cool laser background. Some kids had the fake tree where they would lean up against it, you know.
You should bring that with you.
Throwback Thursday.
Like do's and don'ts.
Right. I'm going to post it if I can find it. All right, here we go. Right-handed, I'm going to start on the right-hand side. If I was to start on this side, there goes my guide. There goes my guide. I don't have a guide. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start on the right-hand side. I'm going to pump this chair up. I'm going to get in my horse stance. All right. Okay. First thing you want to do is place the comb in between your first 2 fingers. Put your thumb on the spine, index finger on the teeth. You have the wide teeth and the fine teeth. He's got finer hair. I can get in there and not push hair with the fine teeth. Just like you're blow drying hair and you grab a section of hair, you start to blow dry, you can control that section and work your way around, right? It's the same thing with the shear and the comb. I'm going to brace the hair into the spine of the comb, and I'm going to see a guide. I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to travel with that guide. I'm going to start out on a little more diagonal. It's going to go into more of a horizontal, and I'm going to drop down into a diagonal back. Here we go.
There we go.
Take your shear, brace the hair into the spine. Now you can see that guide, right? I'm going to open and close. The distance between the pivot screw and the tip, look how much coverage I get. 2 panels.
Is
Half.
that your big sister?
This is a 7.5.
Okay.
Here we go. Lock the hair into the spine. You brace the hair into the spine from behind with your shear. Open and close. Lift. Lock it back down. Cut. Right? Lift. Lock it back down. You can see your guide. You're going to cut. We're working on the exterior. We're not cutting into the top length. Lift. Lock it back down. Now, why do I do this versus a longer guard? Why do I do this versus clipper over comb?
Because you blend it.
Because I want to create a tailored, softer look. With the clipper over comb, you can run the risk of pushing and cutting into hair you need.
And you get holes.
I'm working on the exterior, right? With the guard, you're going to copy the skull. This is a little bit more tailored to create the illusion that it's perfect, yeah?
Clipper over comb, baby.
So I'm going shear over comb, lifting, locking, you can see the guide, and we're working our way out. Up and out. Look, already it's starting to blend, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm diffusing that weight and marrying where we left off with the clippers now into that top length.
Yep.
Now if you get into the crown, it gets a little thick back here. Flip it over, use your wider teeth. Maybe you have a little more natural fall, a little more play through here, right? Because it's a thicker area. Drop it down. Again, same technique. You're gonna lock it, you're gonna lift, lock it back down. Check your guide, cut. See how slow I'm going? Traditionally, you're taught to move very fast, right? I think it's important to put in a basic shape and then go back in and refine it.
Yep.
I think sometimes we get hung up on one spot
Yeah, we do.
and we waste time.
Yeah.
You ever have somebody sit in your chair?
See that spot right there? That would drive me crazy. I'd have to work on it.
Yeah. You ever? I was just about to say, you ever have someone sit in your chair that's talking about something you haven't done? And they're like, "Can you blend that?" And you're like, "I'm not there yet." It's like, I will.
Yeah, or the moms too.
Right? The mom's over there like looking at it. And it's like, sorry. And it's like, yeah, when we're done, you can do that.
Right, exactly.
Nothing worse than a parent
Oh,
helicoptering over you.
2 feet from you?
Yeah. And again,
Nice.
right through here,
Nice.
come in.
Yep.
Now we're going back up. We created that smile line right through here. Now we're coming back up into that diagonal. Lift.
Good.
And it's like, you know, a lot of tension there. Maybe we want to have less tension. We'll go with the wider teeth. Have more of a softer natural fall versus stretching it with the fine teeth. Sometimes it pushes. Lift, lock it back down. You can see your guide. Elevate, cut the hair. Open and close with confidence too. Don't just sit there and do this. Open that thing, right? Drop that scissor down on that still blade. And it takes practice. Just holding the tool, right? Notice the growth pattern of the hair too. Hair starts growing diagonal forward, then it starts growing more vertical, and it starts growing more diagonal back. Right? It's kind of does all three. So you want to go against the way that that hair grows to kind of soften it. You know, in this area too, guys that have longer hairstyles, you ever seen them shape this part up? Right, versus just off that corner in the neckline. They'll shape up the corners. That's fine if they have really short hair. But if they have longer hair, you're disconnecting it. Now you have two levels of hair, longer hair sitting next to short hair when it grows out in a few days. You ever have somebody ask you to square off their neckline? They want it square in the back? What happens 2-3 days later after you do that?
Hair grows around it.
Now it looks like they need another haircut. Again, you can spot treat little things with the finer teeth. You can go in with your 1.5 and just stretch it out again a little bit further if you need to. But it doesn't take super long to do this. It definitely takes a long time to explain and show in a class. But when you're grinding and you're working real time, you'll crank these cuts out 20 minutes. You know, maybe a little bit longer if you want to talk to the person and actually make them feel like they're spending their money without just you. Next, assembly line, you know? I have one guy that takes me like 2 minutes to cut his hair, but I probably take like 20, just because he's an older guy and I feel like he needs that conversation. He needs that time to kind of tell me about his life.
You know what? Personality is part of it.
I think it's a little more important than technical skill, to be honest,
I do.
because people gotta like you and trust you.
Seniors,
Yeah.
and they just love me for who I am. And they don't really care about their hair.
Yeah, because they trust you. You have a relationship,
Yep.
right? Men are typically loyal when it comes to their hair. If they
Yeah.
find somebody that's good, they're gonna stick with that person, right? But But again, it creates another level of light to dark, right? You can stretch it out a little bit further. Some of you guys have the shaver. You go in with that shaver and then you knock out that line with the trimmer, right? You can do that too. This area where, you know, his skull goes in a little bit, gotta be careful there.
Oh yeah.
You know, you gotta be careful as to how deep you cut it, right? You start, and then guys that have gray hair like me, you start to see different shadows.
That is the worst part of anybody's haircut.
What, in here?
Right there.
Yeah, all the little bones that pop out, right?
Oh yeah.
Creates a little shadows, especially when the light hits it.
Yeah.
You ever videotape one of your haircuts at the end, and you go around, and then you get ready to post it, and then you look at it and you see something,
And you're
and you're like,
nah,
but then,
posting
but it's the
this.
light, right? It's the way they hold their head. It's the shadow from the light hitting it, but it's actually blended, right?
I know.
All right. Yeah, the better looking the model, the
Oh,
easier
he's gorgeous.
the easier this is.
Yeah.
You know, he's making me look good right now.
I know.
You know, you guys set me up for success here with Derek.
You're welcome.
All right, so regular day in the office. You're standing behind your guest.
Looks great.
You're going in and you're doing your vertical sections, right? You get to about here and then you go in hand and you cut down. You ever notice that? It's very hard to get in and do a vertical section right here, right? What do you do?
I'll do a clipper over comb.
Yeah.
For this part, for the ear, right? This one
Yeah.
area is like difficult to reach, right? Clipper over comb, right? Guard. Or
One overcome.
you take their chin and you turn their head to their shoulder.
Right?
Then you can come in
Of course.
and you can
you'll
take
look
that
at-
vertical section and work your way right around without having to push that one side longer. That make sense?
Yeah.
So I'll use the vertical section. Once I get to about here, I'll turn their chin to their shoulder. I'll grab the hair. Because I'm working against gravity, I'm able to go in and marry with that vertical section, right? And he doesn't have a ton of hair, but some guys, it's really long. And this is gonna help you start to work in, creep into that top length. Now, another thing I would say in this area, it's not always what you cut, it's what you leave. Sometimes they need to have a little bit more hair, right? When you extend out, okay, and you work off that occipital and you extend out, okay, if you grab a section of hair and you go vertical with it, okay, you're gonna have a little bit more weight in here. If you collapse onto the scalp like this and cut right into it, you're gonna cut all that off. You wanna keep your fingers pointed out and maintain a little bit of length in here. That way you can create a little bit more roundness. It's not so flat to the top. Does that make sense? So extending your fingers out, grabbing that vertical section, cutting the hair, again, grabbing another section and working your way up, you're gonna leave a little bit more hair here. It's gonna look a little bit more rounded. It's not gonna be so flat. Make sense? It's short now, I can't do that. Just another thing that you can pay attention to when you're doing this. Boom, boom, 6-inch here, right? If we want to create a little separation, we can go with the kamikaze. We can lay it right down on his scalp, and we can slide cut a little bit and channel a little bit. But when you do that, don't slam the scissor closed. Just come in and you push. See? And I'm not going to go too crazy because he has shorter hair. Now another cool thing that I learned is you go like this, you're going to cut a lot off, right? You're going to put a hard line right there. But if you hold it the other way, you can soften it like that.
I don't know how to do that.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So it's like another level. Like it's a little bit longer. You can soften it by just reversing it. Okay? Colin Anthony showed me that. Learning stuff all the time. I think there is no ceiling. There is no there. You think you're there, you're dead. You think you know it all? What are you doing? You're dead. Right? We're always learning. That's why I love education so much, because I learned from all these great educators. When I taught at Paul Mitchell, I would learn from the students. I didn't care who was teaching me, as long as I was learning something new. I mean, if you wake up tomorrow a little more dangerous than today, that's the whole point, right? Again, just cleaning up the very bottom of his hairline. into where we left off with that 0, stretching it out a little further. Don't stab and drag it down his neckline. Flip the machine over and use it like a clipper. Unless you have a softer machine that you can go down with, but you try to use like a 0 gap machine and you put it this way and down, it's a nice fade, but it looked like Wolverine cut the person. You ever have somebody say, oh, my trimmer isn't working, or my trimmer is putting bite marks on my guest's neck? Yeah, it's probably because a couple of the teeth are probably missing, or it's offset, the blade might be offset. Sometimes it gets banged around in the bag or on your station. It's about showcasing your art and getting inspiration from others. You know, I did a haircut this week of a Washington Capitals logo for a kid who's obsessed with hockey and the Capitals. And the haircut, the mom was so happy she put, you know, a video and picture on Facebook. And then NBC picked it up and ran a news story on it. And then NHL.com picked it up. And then the Washington Capitals Instagram picked it up. And I say that to say this. Yeah, it feels good that my work is being put out there, right? But imagine being that little kid who's 10 years old and his favorite team is representing him, right? How cool is that? But then you got assholes that comment, oh, that haircut sucks. If I see that kid outside of DC, I'm going to punch him in his face and blah, blah, blah. That's expected. When you have a lot of people looking at something, you're going to have idiots. It's almost like a sign of success, right? When you have haters. I thought it was messed up because imagine the little kid reads that comment, he's going to feel bad. Right? But people are sick that they're trolls. They're using the internet for the wrong reasons. Right? And, you know, if you tag me in one of your haircuts or you have a question about something, I'm a real person. Just hit me up. Message me. You know? I want you to be able to do things that you may not be confident. Have you guys ever checked out my website yet? FadedDreamStudios.com. The reason why I bring it up is you forget a lot of the things that you see or hear if you don't use it right away, right? I have over 100 training videos in the library, and it's only $1 with the promo code to access. So you can sit there in your bed and go through your phone or your iPad or whatever and watch training videos. But you don't have to watch the whole haircut. You can pick and choose by tool and technique what you want to focus on. So like one haircut has like 8 videos, right? Based on the tools. Which I thought was cool because I watched other education videos and you have to sit there and watch the whole thing. With mine, you can pick and choose. And we're always adding new content. And it's a great resource to follow up with, especially after today. I'm pretty proud of it. Check it out. Let me know what you guys think. I'm always throwing it up on my Instagram. The link's in my profile too. But I have a video on Barbershop Connect too, the university. There's a stacked lineup of educators on that site, which is pretty cool. All right. Everything above the shoulder, we're responsible. Everything below the shoulder, 40-year-old virgin. It's another service. They wax their shoulders. That's not for us to do. We don't have to do that. Okay? So some guys, very hairy. They're like Teen Wolf. Hair goes all the way down to their butt crack. We're just responsible above the shoulders. Unless you guys want to make some extra money. You're shaving armpits and chests and stuff. I don't know.
Occasional.
What do you guys think?
Awesome.
We haven't put any product in there. You want to put? Maybe we put some of that stuff you were talking about in his
The
hair.
oil-based kind?
Yeah, let's put some in their hair. I want to show a little bit of the texture that we put in. We didn't do a whole lot on the top length because it's short. And again, it's not about what you cut; it's what you leave on their head, right? Sometimes you need to step away. You ever follow your guests out the door? You're like looking to see if that haircut's perfect, right? Got to know when to put the scissors down. All right, this stuff right here, though, this is kind of cool. Right.
Is that Be Easy?
This is that Be Easy matte pomade. All right, heat it up. Oh yeah, look at that. Run it forward. Here, let's show him. Oh yeah, and I've never used this before, so if I use too much, pardon me. I figured be liberal with it. But again, you know, that texture separation, that hair starts to push, creates a little more natural lift. He doesn't have to blow dry his hair to get some height. The trifecta is what I say happens anytime someone sits in my chair. 3 things. You look younger, slimmer, taller. We stretch you out. How do you feel?
I feel wonderful.
Young Derek. Give it up for young Derek, everybody. So, we went over a little bit of clipper work, a little bit of shear work. But all in all, we don't pride ourselves one over the other. It's when it's appropriate we use. Yeah, I like that. Looks good. Well,
Yeah.
I feel good. Stand up, take a look. Check yourself out. Younger, slimmer, taller. The trifecta.
I like it.
Not bad,
Good
right?
job.
Not bad.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.